Travis Dileo, master's degree in exercise science, certified strength and conditioning specialist. This is MMA Cage Night, Muscle Minute. Alright, so today we're going to talk about a hot topic in sports, in particular mixed martial arts, which is high altitude training. But first of all, I want to cover the basis of what that's all about. Essentially, people are trying to become more efficient at their sport. Alright, they're trying to utilize oxygen more efficiently. Alright, and that's what VO2 is all about. So that's what I want to start with. VO2 stands for volume of oxygen, and then you have VO2 max and VO2 peak. Let's talk about VO2 max. VO2 max is your maximal ability to inspire and utilize oxygen. And that depends largely on the amount of red blood cells you have and the ability to carry oxygen, and particularly at sea level. Okay, but we're going to take this to high altitude, and we'll get there in a minute. But first of all, let's talk about hemoglobin, which is the iron-containing oxygen carrier in your blood. All right, and the iron is actually what makes your blood red. A little fun fact. All right, essentially, you're trying to go to altitude and increase the number of red blood cells so that you have greater oxygen carrying capacity, thus becoming more efficient at what you do. The problem is when you go to high altitude, you can't maintain your VO2 max, your ability to utilize oxygen for a prolonged period of time. Right? So now that's the misconception, is that if you train high at high altitudes, which is defined as about 5,000 feet to about 11,500 feet, then you're going to become more efficient. When actually the idea is to live high, develop those red blood cells, produce more, and then come low and train. All right, that is what you actually want to do. Now, there's a lot of mixed results and research studies out there. We're not going to get into that because this is the misconception. This is what people should be doing. All right. So the idea is when you go high altitude, basically the partial pressures change. All right, the air is less dense, and even though the pressure of oxygen, which is also known as the partial pressure of oxygen, stays the same relative to the other gases like nitrogen and carbon dioxide, the concentration, the amount of molecules, is not available for you to use. All right, so once again, you're not able to sustain your maximal capacity, and you can actually detrain. All right, and that's something that's not talked about a lot, or not enough, in the world of sports. So if you're a mixed martial artist and you're looking to become more efficient and take that next step, take this advice: live high around 5,000, 6,000 feet, and then come down and train low. All right, and also an important note is that this does not last forever. These red blood cells that you develop at high altitude, they only last for what's been shown to be about 15 to 18 days. So your fight has to be relatively close, which is an issue. And that brings me to my next point, which is something that was developed in Finland by a guy's name who I won't care to pronounce, is something called a high altitude house. And this was developed to simulate high altitude training, but you don't have the effects of descending rapidly and getting altitude sickness. So essentially you're living in a house that simulates high altitude training in the pressure systems and the concentrations at that altitude, but you're able to then step right outside and train. All right, it's very advantageous to fighters, to any athlete looking to get to that next step. All right, well, hopefully this clarified any misconceptions you had. If you didn't know anything about it, hopefully it was something new you learned and you liked. And if there's more you want to know, or if there's something that I didn't clarify, then feel free to ask questions. Big thanks to MMA Cage Night. This is Muscle Minute.